What's going on, everybody? My name is Ben and welcome back to the channel for another episode of the Lando Falcon here on Sci-Fi Wednesdays. Today we're going to go ahead and move forward here with additional lighting, and I'm going to try to string in some wires to eventually go ahead and power all these different areas. So far everything is kind of fallen together, so I think it's time to try to work out how we're going to get power. Now I also wanted to go ahead and work a little bit on the escape pod, and I know I said I wasn't going to do any sort of lighting for it, and well, I've kind of pulled back on that idea. I have one fiber optic cable I want to go ahead and string up and poke it out the front on the left hand side. I don't think it's going to be that hard to do. We already have the external holes all drilled out, so those have to be strung up with the fiber optic cabling, of course the ends as well, but I don't think it's going to be that hard to go ahead and string one additional wire from that center point all the way underneath the living quarters and just right into that escape pod and poke it out the front. That should be, I think, pretty easy to do. So that's my plan. We're going to have to see how it all kind of boils out, but that's kind of where I'm going. Now, speaking of fiber optics, we need to go ahead and figure out where we're going to put our lighting source. And I'm kind of thinking right around here in the back of the hole, and then I can just string out the different cables and drop them in through the holes. And then of course, that last one will go underneath the living quarters and just poke right out through the front of that escape pod. And I think that's going to be okay. Now, I did a little bit of fiber optic work before on the Kelvin, so I'm going to have to probably pull up this center living quarters to go ahead and make sure everything is strung correctly. But we're going to test it out today and we're going to see what we can do. So let's talk a little bit about how we're going to go ahead and power all these different areas. I'm going to be using some ribbon cable. This is the same ribbon cable that I've been using for the last couple of builds, so I know it works, and luckily we have exactly the right amount of pairs of wires to go ahead and light all four of the areas that I'm going to be going ahead and stringing up and powering. But first off, let's go ahead and grab a piece of paper, and I want to jot down every single area we're going to be lighting up, and I want to include in that the different color wire pairs and then whether they're positive or negative, just so that I have kind of a template so that I know when I go to actually string these up to the proper switches that I'm not going to screw something up and flip them around and all of a sudden nothing works. So that's what we're going to go ahead and do first. We're going to start off here with the cockpit, and we're just going to write down cockpit. That way I can have it kind of sectioned off from the rest of it. And let's go ahead and say we have the living quarters. So let's go ahead and abbreviate that, just LQ, put that right here. And then we have the engine. So let's go ahead and put just ENG for engine right there. And then lastly, we have our fiber optics. So we'll just put fiber. Then these are the basic areas that I need to go ahead and light up. So now we have to figure out what wires are going to go where. And I'm pretty sure I'm just going to go ahead and start with the pairs of wires and just go by color. So for example, the cockpit will probably get the red and brown, whereas the living quarters will probably get yellow and orange. The engine will probably get blue and green, and then the final fiber optics will go ahead and get purple and gray. So that should be kind of the way we're going with it. We're going to run the first color as positive, the second color as negative, and that way we can have them all written down here. We should be good to go. So let's go ahead and move over to our first time lapse, and let's prep all these wires. I want to get the colors jotted down here, written out. We've got our positive and negative notation, so that's great. Go ahead and solder all these different wires here per color and per positive and negative onto the different areas. And I think we should be in really good order to go ahead and get those wires all tacked into place, get them ready to go, maybe throw some heat shrink tubing on them, and then we'll go ahead and come on back and see how we go. So onto that first time lapse, guys. Let's get some stuff soldered, see what we can do. All right, everybody, we are back. And as you can see, we have more or less all the wires and all of the different lighting areas zoned out, ready to go. There's lots of room in there, so everything fits decently. I do want to go ahead and test fit though and see how the cockpit side sponson actually fits down on top of the hull. And I want to see how the wire will go ahead and kind of snake its way through the internals to poke out the bottom of the hull. So this is again just a preliminary fit, guys. It's more or less like dry fitting. I'm not going to seal anything up yet, but I do want to go ahead and kind of get an idea about how this is all going to go. So let's go ahead and press this down and let's string this cable all the way through the hole, and then we'll seal it up real quick. And then let's see what we have. So go ahead and fish that wire through. I think we're looking pretty good. All right, everybody. So as you can see, the Millennium Falcon is all nicely put together. It's not permanent, mind you, but we do have a basic idea of how this all goes together. And I think we're going to go ahead and start testing a couple of these lighting areas. First, I want to go ahead and start off with the living quarters. I think that's going to be, aside from the cockpit, one of the brightest and most intriguing areas here on the model. So let's go ahead and just twist these wires together. Get the positive attached to positive on my battery supply and the negative to the negative, and then we'll go ahead and see how this looks. And I'm hoping we should see, if everything is connected correctly, we should see 6 LEDs, 3 in the front and 3 in the back. So moment of truth, let's go ahead and hit that switch. And yep, there we go, guys. As you can see, we have a little bit of a light leak here, but that's okay. But yes, as you can see, hopefully we have 3 in the front, 3 in the back. That living quarters area is going to be very well lit. I'm happy about that. So that's cool. I really, really like that. So if that works, I'm assuming the other areas work as well, but we're going to go ahead and test each of those areas off camera. Then we'll be back. We'll talk a little bit about what we find. So we're moving here, guys. I like this. This is awesome. All right, everybody, so I think we're going to go ahead and call it quits for today. I went ahead and looked over all the different lighting sources and all the different wiring, and everything works, which is fantastic. But the fiber optics, they just aren't as bright as I would like them to be. So I'm going to go ahead and look into it a little bit more. I know that all the optic cabling wasn't really sitting flush against the lighting source. So some were a bit brighter than others, and some of them just weren't lit up at all. So I think if I can go ahead and work on that outside of the model, kind of get that set up as a single unit, get everything nicely secured, then I can go ahead and fish it into the openings and then glue it down. And I think that should be enough to make sure that we have even light distribution around all the fiber optics. Of course, you won't really be able to see a lot of that fiber optics, but it should actually reflect. If I can get it bright enough, it actually will kind of draw your eye, and I think it'll look pretty cool. But that is it, guys. We have done quite a bit of work. I know it wasn't that much here for the video, but it did take me some time to go ahead and solder all the different wires on, to jot down which color was positive, which color was negative, which pairs go to which area. So now I have all that kind of written out. I think we are good to go ahead and call it quits for today. Now, next episode we'll be back, and I'm hoping to finally be able to get this all ironed out, tack in all the wires, get the fiber optics tacked together, and then seal it up. If not next episode, then at least the episode after that. And then I'm hoping we're going to be rounding out that corner to get on the base, and that's going to be interesting. So until our next episode, guys, you know the drill. Go out there, get yourself some bench time, have some fun, build something cool, and we'll see you back here on the next episode of the Lando Falcon here on Sci-Fi Wednesdays. Thanks so much, everybody. Take care, and we'll see you soon.